Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Let's Play. Today we're taking a look at 5 Leagues from the Borderlands 3rd edition. This is my follow-up to my GMG review of the rulebook, which you can check out up here. And this is a miniature agnostic solo and cooperative war game for recreating tabletop sort of like adventuring. It has a really in-depth campaign system that's procedurally generated and starts with everything from drawing a map of the region you're locating, and adding little doodles of unexplored locations, through to randomly generating threats in the region that your warband will probably get involved with trying to eliminate, and the campaign ends when all of those threats have been basically like washed out. So it's a little bit like playing a tabletop version of video games like Elden Ring or Skyrim, where you're controlling someone sort of like wandering through the mists, finding new stuff, being given quests and contracts, and then playing out how the combat parts of it go and the adventuring parts of it go on the tabletop. The subtitle for this game could also be called What to Do with That Reaper Bones Kickstarter that you've been sitting on for a while, and that's what I used it as an opportunity for. I just unpacked like these boxes of fantasy miniatures I had not built and painted yet, and used it as a reason to crack on and get some of them done. So I'll show you the table, show you my warband, Ranulf's Repossession Rangers LLC, and we'll get this underway. So here I am, having assembled everything I need to play the introductory scenario that you are given in the 5 Leagues from the Borderlands rulebook. I've followed through with the campaign sort of starting process in the warband building, rolled up my warband, assembled some bad guys for the start scenario because they're all sort of like pre-described, drawn my map. As you can see, this is my hand-drawn one, my initial one. I've also made it available on my Patreon as like a color digitized version that I zhuzhed up in Photoshop, along with a campaign primer, having rolled up all my locations. So this is the Five Finger Mountains. This is the starting map for the region. And there's some background for it, and also the 4 settlements that I rolled up, and I've drawn on some points of interest as well. I rolled up my threats: the Gnawing Horde, the Whispers from the Honor, the internal threats, one at 5 and one at 6. And the Curse of War is the external threat camped out on the ice at the edge of the region. So Ranulf enters from a map edge, so here you can see this is called the Pass. It is a way in. There's 2 ways in and out of the region, but the Pass is the one he's basically sent the Rangers through. And this is my warband. I used the most recent Reaper Bones Kickstarter minis and just picked 6 that I like. So that's step 1. Pick 6 models you like. Then rolled up some random sort of like characters. There's 6 different character archetypes. I got a noble, which is Ranulf himself there. You can see he's like a semi-retired nobleman who started a repossession agency. I've got a zealot, who is my sort of Templary looking fellow back there, and then 2 townspeople, one townsfolk and 1 mystic. My mystic is the guy with the bombs. He used to do pyro for the Bard Festival, and he's not so much a wizard as he is a mad scientist. But I like these miniatures and I wanted to use them. Then my 2 sort of supporting cast, my followers. I have a quiet forester, she's in the back there with her bow, and a hired guide with his just carrying Ranulf's bags of stuff. He's like the boy. He doesn't get a name, they just call him boy. They're like, boy, fetch this, boy, fetch that. And the quiet forester hasn't told anyone her name, she's just kind of like following along. Rolling up my characters, I got for my avatar, which is going to be Ranulf Darkson here. He gets his free luck point and will point for being an avatar. He rolled an agility increase, so weirdly quick for a man his size and age. He's human, so he gets +1 to speech tests automatically, just as like his like background bonus. And his skill, he got Old Scars, so he starts with 3 story points. Basically, he's returning home to this region after spending a long time away. His equipment, he found full armor, and then one of the quality weapons that the warband gets at the beginning, I gave him a bastard sword. So he's just got a decent sword. And then he's like randomly earned 6 XP as well for like additional stuff. Old Scars was one of his like background stories. And he rolled 3 XP as well on like the beginning table. So he's got 6 like starting experience he can spend after the first or the second game. Because in the first game there's no like post-game sequence, you just get a story point if you manage to complete it. Jarrett the Mystic, he's a bit of a firebug. He got a speed increase, making his speed 5 + 4 if he dashes. He's got a will point and also +1 speech because he's a human. He knows the following spells: Barrier, Fog, which I chose, Darts, which is reload someone's shooting attack, Premonition, and Infuse, all on 6s. Premonition's on a 7. And he's got a skill of wits +2, he rolled up randomly. He's equipped with torches, 3 torches, and a fencing sword, light armor, and a sling. So you can throw things too. Mav, she's a former town guard, now acting as a bodyguard for Ranulf Darkson. She rolled up a scholar in crafting skills, so she's pretty knowledgeable. She can fix stuff up. She's a fencing sword and partial armor. That's her other upgrades. Then Packard Dane is my human zealot. He's agility 1. He rolled up toughness increase for toughness 4 and a will bonus. I guess he's former Templar of the Order. And then his skills are wilderness +2 and expertise +2. He's got a bastard sword, his axe there, a helmet, a shield, and partial armor. So he's my most heavily armored character, although the full armor on Ranulf is pretty legit as well. And my Quiet Forester, she'll earn a name later. She won't tell anyone her name just yet. She has a self-bow, a light weapon, and light armor. And then my hired guide has just a pickaxe. He's just a former, like, I guess he uses it to, like, dig out shelters and stuff for Ranulf when they're traveling. I ended up with some extra weapons that I didn't hand out because I wanted the self-bow on, what's her name, on, the Quiet Forester, so I gave light armor and throwing knives into the stash when I might equip it after the first game. Into the backpack, the collective backpack that everyone's carrying. See on the map, we're entering down here. This is going to be my placement marker right now, although you'll see like an overlay later on. Entering into the pass, arriving back in the region. We're going to be playing the starter scenario before we pull ourselves into a full-fledged game. Now we're going to use the coming back section here, which means we're going to use the morale rules, use my created warband, and 7 total bad guy models. There's 2 in the back with self-bows. They are speed 4-3, combat 0, damage 0, toughness 4, armor 0, and have their self-bows. And there's 3 just sort of like schlubs. Toughness 4, same movement, and no actual additional equipment. And then 3 or 2 sort of like armored dudes, one of which is kind of heroic. His name is Grin, and he's +1 damage, and he is also toughness 4, but they're both armor 1. They have like metal shields, making them slightly tougher than normal. The table, we need a 2x2 table, is the recommended size. And then place a hill, ruin, or forest, or center piece of terrain at least 4x6 in the middle of the table. So this old ruin we've encountered coming through the pass, it's some kind of way station. It's obviously fallen in disrepair and is occasionally used as like a campsite by travelers. Scatter some single trees, big rocks, statues, other items around the table, which we've done. Next, place the villains in a rough line with 2 inches between each figure, making sure each figure is in or behind a piece of terrain for cover. So they're going to be basically hiding out in this ruin. There are kobolds inhabiting this ruin, and then we get to be placed anywhere not within 12 of a bad guy along one edge. Today we're focusing on the core solo play and AI mechanics of the game. We'll be doing a cooperative game with the full campaign, sort of like gamut, in game number 2. So Ranulf basically arrives looking for a campsite and is waylaid by a bunch of gnawing horde, the kobolds, who are out from wherever their lair is and ready to ambush some sort of like unwary travelers. Now in the AI system, the first step of the turn is the initiative. You're going to roll a die for each one of your characters on the board and still alive, and then assign them. Any dice that are equal to or under their agility go on their, either next to the model or on their like unit entry. I'm going to use this 2 because Ranulf's agility is 2 to give him a 1, so he'll get to activate during the quick action phase. Everybody else's agility 1, so all these go down as 6s. They will happen later on after all the enemies have gone. So basically Ranulf is able to activate quickly. Everybody else is surprised. He's an old hand at this. They're surprised by the attack or ambush of the kobold. So Ranulf is getting to make his move plus his action for the turn before the kobolds get to act. So he's going to get into some cover because there are some self-bows up there you can see up in the sort of like the attic or the former attic of this ruin. Now his basic movement's 4. If he wants to dash, he gets to add his dash movement, which would normally be 3 inches, but he's wearing full armor. You know, he's a little slow. So he's going to go 4 behind this tree, and then 1 more just to like peek to one side. Those activation dice off. Now this mechanic's a little bit honestly like Warhammer Quest, where you get to roll your action dice before you do anything else, and it kind of dictates the flow of the turn, but it does mean some random, you don't always get the models you want to have go first. Now, the creatures get to go. Now, the first thing you activate is creatures with ranged weapons, and they will try to move towards cover and towards something they can shoot. If they become unloaded, so if they run out of ammunition, then they become melee creatures instead and operate like melee creatures. So this guy with a self-bow, he's going to walk to the edge here. peek over the ledge and try and see Ranulf. The priority of targets for them is going to be things within 8 they will shoot. If they have, then it's things that have ranged weapons they will shoot, and then finally other models. So this is my model with a ranged weapon. He's got a sling as well. So the Quiet Forester and Jarek both have ranged attacks. So he wasn't within 8 inches at the beginning. Actually, I guess he would actually move to try and see and be in cover against the Quiet Forest. Stealth bow, so he can shoot 18, so he's well within range. This is 8, so 8, like under 16 away. And the sort of like shooting to hit, you roll a single die for each shot that you have, and those dice will hit on a 3+ if you're within 6 and the target's in the open. If the target is in cover, on a 6, and if the target is in the open and in range, on a 5. You get to add your combat bonus if you don't move. Now, none of these guys have a combat bonus, so it's just going to be a straight dice roll. So throwing his little javelin over here at the Quiet Forester, he moved, so no combat bonus, not that he has one. She's in the open, so it'll be a 5+ because it's within range. If she was in cover, it'd be on a 6. And it hits. Now, all right, so now she has taken a hit. She is wearing light armor, which means she has an armor value of 1. So the first thing that this kobold has to do is roll to overcome her armor. Now, if she does, she'll take damage. If it equals her armor, she'll become stunned instead. So a 4 is going to overcome her armor of 1 because it's higher. If it was equal to, she becomes stunned. If it's under her armor value, she will just be like totally fine. It'll stop the hit. Now we have to see if it overcomes her toughness. She's toughness 3. And she equals the toughness. So because it equals the toughness, she will take a injury. She becomes wounded. She's also stunned, which will end at the end of this activation. There's a +1 combat bonus to shoot her again, to attack her again right now. Now, if she's ever wounded a second time, she'll be taken out of action. It means the second range model can go. It can also see her in the open. So it's going to fire its bow and arrow this time. It's a little short bow, range 18. She's in the open, so it's a 5+ to hit. It does! Oh my goodness. All right, once again, it has to overcome her armor, though, which it does with a 2, and then overcome her toughness, which it does. So she is just straight up taken out of action. Bam! Combat can be deadly. Quiet Forester falls victim to the range attacks of the kobolds. Now, the remaining kobolds get to move. Now, they have 4/3 movement, and they will try to remain in cover and also move towards the closest thing that they can see. So, Ranulf is going to get charged, so 4 inches. And then also 3 inches from anyone with a ranged weapon. So he's going to try and go behind the tree here to stay out of line of fire of that sling. Same with this guy. He's going to go 4 and then 3 as well. I'm peeling around the corner towards Ranulf. These ones using the fence for cover will go 4 and then 3. So they won't hop to the other side just yet because they can't make it into cover. And you're supposed to use your best judgment to try and make these enemies fairly smart. So 4 and then 3 again. Over to here. And then last but not least, much the same, he's going to come out and then stay in cover behind the wall. He won't end a move in the open if he can help it. Little sergeant there, ready to tell the story. The remaining heroes get to go, and we're going to start with the sort of like hired guide. He's going to move forward here, the boy, and he's going to charge into this kobold. This move, he's going to make a combat action. Now, combat is resolved in a series of exchanges up to a total of 3. The attacker rolls a dice, the defender rolls a dice, they add their combat bonus. Now, if the attacker has a friend within 1 inch, he also gets a supporting bonus of +1. Both of these guys have supporting bonuses, which means they will both get the +1, so it'll just wash. So the boy gets a 5, the kobold gets a 4, which means he now strikes a blow. So just like in a ranged attack, he has to overcome his armor. Now, this guy's armor 0, so we just skip that. And then we go straight to overcoming toughness. Now, he's armed with just a standard weapon, so there's no bonuses to either of these. This kobold is toughness 4, though, naturally leather. So he's going to become injured. And we fight another round of combat now. And he's also stunned. So another boy will get a +1 combat bonus because of the stun. If the blow is struck, there's something called the push. This guy gets pushed 1 inch, and then I follow up. Retreat 1 inch backward. Now what that's going to do is cause me to follow up into them because I'm still the attacker. Now I still have a friend within 1 inch, so I still retain my combat bonus, and he is now stunned. Exchange number 2 to a maximum of 3. I attack again. Whoa, both of us get +1 for having friends within 1 inch, and +1 for being stunned. So this becomes a 7, which means the boy again wins the exchange. Doesn't have to break armor. Does he break toughness? He does this time, and that will just straight up knock this guy out of action and end the combat. His initiative dice into the pool. And then we're on to the characters over here. So trying to deal with this ranged threat, the Alchemist Jarrett is going to move forward 4 to here. He's going to try and throw his sling up to there. Out of cover, so he doesn't get a combat bonus because he doesn't have one. He's going to roll a die and look for a 5-6 because he's in the open and in range of 10 inches. He hits him. He would have hit him even in cover. Now, there's no armor on that kobold, so he's got to overcome his toughness of 4. He does not. He equals it, which means he becomes wounded and stunned. His die comes off. Then the 2 remaining heroes are going to attempt to protect their friend. So in partial armor, there's going to be a movement reduction for Packard Dane over here. Dash is reduced by 1, so he'll move up 4, but then he'll only dash 2, heading towards this I guess, sergeant-y looking fella. And then Mav, the former town guard, she's going to try and deal with the kobolds over here, or at least get within striking distance. She will move 4, and she's also wearing partial armor, so she only dashes 2. So she'll dash to the wall here and be ready to fight next turn. That ends the slow actions phase, and now we're into the tracking phase. Heroic figures are heroic, of course, and they can flee the battlefield if they're within an inch of the edge, but they might have to make a flight from the dark roll. If they're in a delve or something like that, they gotta run through danger to get away. Now the enemies, each turn we tally up how many enemies were destroyed and roll a die. The number of 1s or 2s are considered morale failures. That's other kobolds who run away. So we've killed 1 bad guy. We roll a 2, so someone else runs away. Or the enemy closest to the edge of the battlefield, so one of these archers is going to run away because that's the enemy edge. He's just like, nope, because he watches this guy just eat a rock in the forehead. So he's wounded now. He loses at the end of the slow actions phase, his stun status. All right, so we're into a new turn. So turn 2, we're going to roll some more initiative. Now there's only 5 characters left in the battlefield because the Quiet Ranger was shot early on with a javelin. We get another 2, which means Ranulf can go before anybody else, but everybody else is going to be higher than. So we'll put down 6s for their initiatives. And of course, the Quiet Ranger was knocked out. Can't let the boy take all the glory, so he's going to pile onto this kobold. The weapon to use, he's got a bastard sword, which gives +1 to overcoming toughness, and he will make a first of 3 exchanges fight roll. So with his combat of +0, he's going to get +1 for having a friend within an inch, because the boy's there. He gets a 4 total to a 2 for the kobold, which means he now gets to overcome his armor. His armor is 0, because he's not wearing any. He's just wearing pants. And then overcoming toughness, he gets +1 to the roll because of his bastard sword. Gets a 7, just slays this guy. Now it's all the enemies' activation. So starting with the shooter, he's going to try and shoot the nearest range threat he can see while moving to cover. So he'll move behind the box and then throw a javelin, 18-inch range, see if he can hit him. It'll be on a 5 because he's in the open. No. He threw his last spear, which means he's out of ammo, and he becomes a melee monster for the rest of the game now. Starting with the kobolds, the first, he's going to jump over and attack Mav. So Mav is a combat +1. She's a veteran town guard. So she gets out one of this roll. She only gets a 2, though, which means this kobold strikes a blow against her. Plain Jane, little kobold. She is armor, wearing partial armor. 2, so on a 1 or a 2, it may deflect it. 1 just completely absorbs the blow. If it was on a 2, she becomes stunned, but she's armor 1, so it just like slams into her and she doesn't actually take any damage. He's, however, pushed back an inch, and for the second exchange, the kobold follows up. Kobold's still the attacker. Oh, but loses the combat decisively, which means the combat now changes, and she is now the attacker. Push, but for the third exchange, she now gets to try and strike a blow as the attacker. Wow, she does with a 7. She does have to try and overcome its armor, which she does, and then overcome its toughness. She has a bastard sword. No, she has a fencing sword, actually. It's just straight up roll. Nope, she'll wound him, though. And then the push happens, and he's pushed back an inch. This next kobold jumps over and attacks Mav. Takes a swing at her. Gets a 4. She gets a 6, though, so she now becomes the attacker. And no one's driven back yet. And then second exchange, she gets a 2 to his 3, so he becomes the attacker. Third exchange, they're just like striking blows against each other. He wins decisively and tries to overcome her armor of 2, which he does, then overcome her toughness of 3. He does again, she's knocked out. Oh, she just got overwhelmed. Mav is down, had to fight 2 kobolds and lost the second. All right, this third guy comes up and is going to attack Packard Dane. Pretty heavily armored, but let's see what happens. So this guy is still combat +0. So they draw. Packard does have a front within an inch, though, which will put him at a 6. He becomes the attacker now and tries to swing a blow. He has his friend, again, taking him up to a combat of 2, so he wins. Overcomes armor of 1. He does, and then he has a bastard sword, so +1 of the injury roll. Try and beat a 4. 5-6, just slays this sergeant. All right, so slow actions now. Mav's done. We're going to start with, I think, Jarrett. He's going to try and throw his sling over here. So taking a shot, he needs a in the open within 6, 3+. No, he fails. Packer Dane is just going to slam into this kobold over here. First round of the fight, he will lose and become the defender. Second round, he will... Is he +1 fight? He's not. He'll lose and have a blow struck against him. Now, he is armor 2 with his partial armor. That breaks his armor, and then he is toughness 4. No, he's out. Gets knocked out as well by that kobold. That kobold is a slayer. So it's just the boy remaining. He's going to move out 4, and then 3 more, and then try and support Jarrett. Round 3, sorry, actually, the morale check at the end of all of this. They lost 2 kobolds this turn. And 1 more is going to run away. The one close to the edge, so this wounded kobold takes off. He's out of ammunition anyway. He decided it was time to flee. That's initiative round 3. There's only 3 characters left on the board. And they all fail their initiative, so these kobolds go first. All right, closes 1. The Slayer goes running into Jarrett. Jarrett's just armed with light armor and a fencing sword. A bunch of basic combat. Now we're going to introduce the tactics we can use. You can fight evasively. The character rolls normally. If they win, they inflict no hits, but may move 2 inches, ending the melee. I can fight defensively, roll twice and pick the best roll, but if they win, they inflict no hits. This tactic negates counterattack, and then fight furiously, attacker only. The character rolls normally. If they win, they can add +1 to either overcome toughness or overcome armor. Lose, they suffer a hit, and this tactic is not selectable if the enemy can counterattack. Fencing Blade has parry, which means if he rolls a 1, he will automatically avoid all damage. Only when defending. So that's going to be down to fighting defensively, I think, for 2 dice rolls versus 1, because he wants to live, and he rolls a natural 1, so he parries. So it doesn't stop the combat from continuing, so the push still happens, and he'll follow up. He'll fight defensively again by selecting a tactic. The bad guy always fights offensively, and rolls another 1, so he parries again. He gets driven back another inch. Whoop. The third round of the combat, he'll fight defensively again with his fencing sword. And everybody rolls a 3, but he's got a front within an inch now, which makes his a 4. But he strikes no blows. And he's still pushed back 1 inch at the end of it all. Sorry, technically he becomes the attacker now. And they stay locked in combat. Alright, next one up. This wounded kobold does his 4. And then 3. And goes and fights the boy, but he doesn't have any action left to fight with. Start with Ranulf. He's going to come to the rescue. He's going to go 4 and then 1 more to there. I'm coming, fellas. Boy will fight. Both of them have a front with an inch, so it just washes the combat bonuses. So it's just going to be a straight dice roll. They tie, and the combat ends. And it retreats back an inch, and that's it. So that means he will gain a combat bonus, so he's just going to do a straight attack roll with his fencing sword. And he'll hit with a 6. So does he overcome the armor of 1 on a 2+? He does not. He will, however, become stunned and injured. And then he's driven back during the push. And the combat ends. Combat does not end. He can keep going. He'll go again. They're both going to have friends within 1, but he's stunned now, so it's +1. That will break the tie, make that a 6. So overcome the armor on a 2. He does. Actually, he's not injured because it was under his armor. Overcome the armor on a 2+. He does, and then overcome his toughness. This will be what wounds him. He does not. Nothing happens. Push takes place again. Still stunned, though. +1 for the stun. That'll break the tie. Put that to a 2. Strikes a blow again. On a 2+, it breaks the armor. It does. On a +1, he has speed of 4. He takes him out of action. That's it. So another model out of action. Does this guy flee? He does. This last kobold takes off wounded. And that ends the encounter. In the encounter, we gain a story point. There's no resolution stage, but I'll just explain how it works. In this sort of like learning scenario, we gain a story point. Now, story points can be expended basically as plot armor over the course of the game. You have to agree in the campaign how to use them. You can make it just like cancel a hit if you want. The other way of using story points is to give you a second dice roll to any test and allow that second dice roll to be picked or exchanged for the first one. You can still keep the first one if you like, if it's worse or whatever, but you basically roll a second set of results and decide which one you want. That's the one we're going to use for our campaign. I have 3 story points because of the old scars on Ranulf. But of course we just lost 3 people. Life can be very cheap in the Borderlands. So right now it's just Jarrett, the boy, and Ranulf who've survived this ambush and then go to make their sort of like camp here at the end of the day. If this was a full story mission, we would be rolling to see what happens to Mav, to Packard Dane, and of course to the Quiet Forester, and that's called the resolution stage. Fought against a threat and you achieved your objective, you may now attempt a milestone adventure. If the milestone's achieved, the threat is reduced by 1. So basically you can try and spend adventure points, and then you roll a d6 afterwards to see, and if you roll under the adventure points you spend, you can reduce the threat on something. And you're trying to reduce the threats to 0 in all the regions. So right now we're at threat 6, from the Whispers Beyond, the Gnawing Horde, which we just encountered, we're at threat 5, and the threat of war is the last one, which we're at threat 5 for as well. So the big thing is the Whispers in the Dark. So collect adventure points is the first step. So we were victorious in the raid, or threat encounter, so we get 4 adventure points for that. If we were on a ride patrol, we get 1. If we defeated an aberration, which is like a big monster, we get 1. Defeat a unique foe for 2, a captain lieutenant for 1, or finish a contract for additional 1. So now we could immediately spend those if we wanted to and roll another die. If we roll under that 4, which we do, we would spend that many adventure points, and then, like I'd say, I'm going to spend my 4 adventure points. I roll under the 4, all those adventure points go away, and I reduce the threat of the Gnawing Horde down to a 4. Sometimes you complete an adventure and roll low, and you wouldn't want to risk. You'd want to bank another adventure before you try and actually reduce the threat, which is called milestoning. We also have to like destroy their hideouts, which is a whole other type of adventure. Then check for injuries and flight in the dark. Characters may suffer consequences from what happened in the battle. If a character is removed from the battle as a casualty, roll a d100 on the injury table and find out what happens. And there's different tables for heroes and followers. So I had 2 heroes go down and 1 follower. So I'd roll a d100. So let's say for Packard Dane, I got a 53. 53 is going to give me a light injury. I'd miss d3 games. You would miss 1 game. For Mav, she gets a 9. Just dead. Sorry, but you get a story point. And for the Quiet Forester, who's a follower, 73. One of her items is damaged. So when items get damaged, you randomize a piece of armor or equipment they're carrying and it becomes damaged. If it was fine, it's no longer fine, but it's just like a normal piece of equipment. So for her, she's carrying a self bow, a light weapon, light armor. You would just like D3 it. So the light armor is now damaged. You can get luck to cancel these rolls. So for instance, if Ranulf was injured, he could spend his 1 luck point permanently to not be like dead if he rolls dead. And then Silver Tree Leaf can be used to re-roll stuff on the injury table, but not the Flight in the Dark table. So if we're all surrounded and stuff like that. Lose equipment or just become knocked out and escape with no long-term effects. Then you check for advancement. So if you acquire XP, then you can spend experience points. Ranulf is already able to roll on the advancement table after his first game. If he survived the encounter for 1, he'd get an extra 1. If you kill an enemy leader, you get an extra 1. Heroic Slayer, get XP equal to the reward rating for like big aberrations and stuff. And if you held the field or achieved your objective, you get +1 to all your heroes. Followers don't necessarily get it, but the heroes do. For loot, if you achieve the objective, you can roll to see if you get any loot on the loot table. It's good stuff. You roll a d100 to see if you get valuables, weapons, armor, tools, consumables, or enchanted items. If you have an objective in this battle, we were just being ambushed, so we wouldn't necessarily roll on that. And we roll for unusual finds. We held the field, so we roll a d100 to see what we actually find. A 15, we would get battered weapons, potentially. So battered weapons are like weapons that are kind of damaged, and you can fix them. Oh. The light armor that was damaged, you're not usable until you actually fix it. So on a 1, we find a standard battered weapon, and we could fix it up if we go to town or a settlement. In over body, we always find potentially like extra coins and stuff too. You could find remains on victims, a story point or adventure point that way as well. In fact, after rolling that dead result for Ranulf, or sorry, for Mav, we could have actually rolled again and gotten a 43 by spending a story point. So that would have just been a moderate, actually a light injury. She'd have missed D3 turns as well. So 1 turn. So it could have been that Mav and Jared are just missing a game. If I spend story points, I go down to 2 story points left. So there are ways, again, of avoiding and cheating death. which are significant. Experience points would allow me to level up. You could get an advancement roll, for instance, for Ranulf, and he would roll to see what he gets. For a non-mystic character, it's a D100. On a 17, he'd get a speed increase or a skill selection. Actually pretty useful for him. You could definitely use being a bit faster while wearing that heavy armor, old man. First one takes speed to 6+3, which is nice. Base movement becomes 6 and his dash becomes still 1. And you can also get stat increases like your agility or toughness. Your combat skill can go up by +1 and +2, and your will and luck can go up as well. Mystic, then you might also get a casting increase. Followers can gain skills, and then also if you roll an 86 to 95, eventually when they advance, they could become a hero. There's tons of loot tables, special items you can find too, and I won't spoil any of that because we'll be coming across during the campaign. So with no unusual finds except for a battered weapon, we would then go and check our settle in step. If within the same map area as a settlement, you can begin the next campaign turn in town or in camp as you prefer. So we'll be in camp because there's no settlements right now where we are in the pass. And then we can go to news travels. You roll D100 in the news table below to see what reaches you from other lands and apply the results immediately. So someone walking down to the traveler, we roll a 17 and find a community in need of supplies. Randomly select a settlement you are not currently in. If you travel to it within the next 2 campaign turns, you can skip your next upkeep and gain 2 adventure points. So basically, if we get to Boar's Hearth in the next 2 campaign turns, we will not need to pay our upkeep, and we'd get 2 adventure points. Again, none of this matters though, because none of this post game would actually happen, and we would be back into the preparation stage, which we'll start our next episode in, as Jay and I basically embark from the pass into the actual area. A story point though, which takes us to 4. Luckily, because of the plot armor of just playing an introductory mission, everybody in Ranulf's Repossession Rangers survives their ambush in the pass. They make their camp here in this abandoned ruin, and we'll meet up with some other adventurers in our next episode as we explore the co-op rules, the preparation stage, and the full sort of like gamut of playing a campaign turn now that we've got the core mechanics under our belt. It was at least nice enough to stack some wood for the party. And so there we go. After the introductory game, the sort of first game in to 5 leagues from the Borderlands, the party is now camped out in the pass. Now my campaign map is divided into 4 quadrants. We are in the bottom right, sort of like southeast quadrant right now, coming through the pass. There are some unexplored locations there. But we'll be setting up during the preparation stage our first in-camp game and meeting up with other travelers coming through from outside lands. So we'll be back with Jay for the next one. We'll see you for that one in 2 weeks. Till then, I'm Ash. Happy gaming. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that video. There are tons of other games already recorded for you to watch. Click over to my channel page if you haven't already, and have a look through the dozens of playlists full of videos. I guarantee you'll discover a game you haven't seen played before. I put out new videos 7 days a week, and every day is themed to a different genre as I continue to explore the wider world of gaming. Of course, none of that's possible without you, the viewer, so click a like and subscribe if you'd like to stay on top of what's happening here daily. My 2 kids and I are massively grateful to be able to have the flexibility of this job so I can always maximize my time with them. If you want to support me continuing to put out this content, it's only possible because of my amazing backers on Patreon who support the studio, equipment, and model cost, as well as being how I make the bulk of my living. You can also help out by buying a t-shirt through Spreadshirt, a measuring gauge or widget from Death Ray Designs, or buying one of my games and supplements like Last Days, Gamma Wolves, and Blaster. As a way of showing my appreciation, patrons get early access to new games and supplements that I write throughout the course of the year. Huge thanks for watching, it really does help out, and happy gaming.